would request Mr. Amit Bansal to please deliver his keynote address.
Dear Professor Subramaniam, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, Dr. Kanhare, and Mr. P.N. Sharma, and dear friends. It's a great pleasure to be here and to be invited to share my thoughts. And Nishad actually widened the canvas for me when he said, that today's topic is frauds. It widened the canvas for me to talk, but I have decided to stick, and I will talk only about the risk of fraud and how to kind of manage those risks of fraud and not get into the area of how to commit frauds. When we talk today of the risk of fraud, I'll slightly broaden and I'll talk in terms of overall governance structure and the compliance. And I think because that's where the entire risk management and the management of fraud risk starts from. If we look at in terms of how do we build a sustainable business, building a sustainable business requires a good compliance culture and a good governance structure. That is the fundamental. It's true not only in India, it's true globally. You see, world over, sustainable and large businesses have been built upon a culture of strong compliance, a culture of a very good governance structure, and that's what drives business. That's what drives confidence amongst business partners, amongst customers, amongst suppliers. The confidence of doing business with you increases. That's what a good governance and a compliance structure does. Unfortunately, in India, when we look at governance and compliance, it's a tick-in-the-box approach. When we talk of compliance, we look at compliance as a cost. We don't look at it as an investment. We don't look at it as something which will create a backbone which can create a robust and sustainable business. It requires a huge shift in mindset in the Indian context if we need to kind of get our share in the global economy. If we talk of, just a week back, I spent about 10 days in Japan, talking to various companies, understanding their perspective in terms of what they think about investing in India. And the universal answer was, the governance and the ethics culture is something which we see as a huge risk. That came across as the biggest issue. That's, I met up with possibly about 50 to 60 people, may not be a representative sample, but it was amongst the key corporates in Japan. And this, even, FICCI has done one survey. Even that survey has identified the risk of bribery and corruption and the risk of fraud as the biggest issue and the biggest risk amongst all the risk which any organization faces. And, I'm not comparing this risk with, with routine risk. They have actually in their survey covered things like theft, risk of natural disasters, fires, routine business risk, and amongst all those risks, the risk of bribery and corruption and fraud is being rated the highest. Having said that, if that is at the highest level, then how should we dealing with it? It has to be part of your strategic business planning. It has to be part of all the plans, all the business areas, growth areas which one needs to look for. Typically, whenever I look at companies and businesses planning for growth, the risk which they identify is, the risk of supply, the risk in marketplace, the risk in supply chain, operations management, I don't see the risk related to fraud, compliance, regulatory issues being at the highest level. That is somewhere, at the lowest end when it comes to evaluating any fresh business opportunity for growth. And it is extremely critical in today's environment, given that our legal structure is changing. We are having newer laws. We have the New Companies Act. Soon we will have our own version of a UK Bribery Act. We already have the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Plus there are a few more acts, legislations which are expected to come, which will make India one of the most progressive countries in terms of the kind of legislations which we have from creating an ethical business environment. The compliance requirements under some of these legislations could be very, very tough. So it is extremely important for businesses to start preparing for that right now. Another aspect from an India context which I like to highlight is, people think in terms of new acts are coming in. Hey, so how does it matter? The enforcement is weak anyways. The weak enforcement culture in the India also creates a little bit of a complacent attitude amongst businesses. And very, very recently, if you see, we have examples of some of the very, very big brand names coming in under the scanner. It has been covered in the press. One of the entities was in the foods business. Another entity, automobiles business. Very, very respected brand names coming under the scanner. I don't know whether there was a real issue or not, but it is all compliance related. The biggest brands, the years in which they took so many years to create that reputation, that trust with the suppliers, with the consumers, that has come into a question mark. That's what the complacent attitude on compliance can do to you. You never know where there will be one government official who may be straightforward, who may be honest, and he will crack the whip. Typically, the response which I see from most of the Indian businesses is that, this is a risk, we can manage the officer. Okay, we can manage the officer. And, I am talking a little bluntly here, and the response which I again get from most of the people is that is the way of doing business in India. It cannot change. I disagree with that. There are entities in India who have shown that business can be done without that. And not all government departments or not all government officials are corrupt. Because it is convenient for us, because we don't want to create a compliance culture, we use that as an excuse. And that is where the attitude needs to change. And that is where we need to look in-house, see what we want as a risk management culture, a compliance culture, and a governance structure for us. At the end of the day, today in India, we are competing against global businesses. If we want our place on the global platform, we need to create those kind of governance structures which will create confidence amongst international business community, international suppliers, and even customers. Isn't it a matter of pride when one can say today Jaguar Land Rover is an Indian brand? For how many people, you will feel proud about this thing? And tomorrow, if somebody says Apple is an Indian brand, how many of us will feel proud? Days are not too far. Opportunity is there for us. The next 20 years belong to India. If we look in terms of the kind of opportunity which we have from a business perspective, it is immense. Only we can ruin it. Growth is assured, no matter which government, which government comes in. It's only a matter of the pace at what we will grow. If we have a more favorable government, the pace will be much faster. We can possibly reach the destination much faster than what we could otherwise do. But if we have to make use of this opportunity as a business and create a scalable business, having a robust governance structure, a robust compliance structure, a change in attitude towards compliance is a must. Another thing which I will like to talk about in terms of what is now changing from a business perspective. 10 years back, if I look back 10 years and now, or rather let me look at 20 years back and then 10 years and now. I started my career 20 years back. When I joined, there were no emails. Today, while talking to you, I can check my emails. Okay, that's how the business has changed. When I joined my career, we used to write letters, send a letter, it will reach the other party in a week's time, wait for a response. And that was the way of doing business. Today, before I came in, I had a call with 7:30 in the morning with a client in US. We had to start the work today. They are going on their leave. During that period, the work has to happen here. And once the leave is over, the report needs to be ready. All I'm trying to show is the speed of response, how technology has intervened our lives at an individual level, and how technology has intervened at a business level. That is even far, far important to look at. Who would have thought of 5 years back, could have thought of somebody like a Flipkart, an Ola, an Uber? That's how technology is changing the business models. Coming in of e-commerce, coming in of mobile technology, coming in of cloud computing. Business models will change beyond recognition. We need to prepare for that. The business models of today will not, possibly what we will see 10 years hence will be very, very different. Today you go to the malls, you don't find as much of rush as you possibly used to find, let's say 3, 4, 5 years back. Not that sales are decreasing. Because today, possibly some of you may be just buying something on Flipkart or Snapdeal sitting here right now. That's what technology has done. You can buy anything anywhere, sitting anywhere. It's just tip of the iceberg. It's just tip of the iceberg. What does this do? Coming in of technologies in various forms and fashions increases the risk manifold in multiple ways. We spoke of cyber risk. Mr. Gopalakrishnan touched upon cyber risk. there are many, many more issues when we look at the risk emanating from technology. Today, your network is sitting in a glass house. You may think you are sitting in a very closed environment, but you are sitting in a glass house. And you don't know who will attack you from where. There are state actors. When I say state actors, internationally there are governments which fund network intrusion activities. There are organized crimes, including terror groups, drug groups. There are hacktivists and there are insiders. You don't know where your risk comes from. And today each one of us has multiple devices. It's no longer that only through the laptop you connect. I have 2 mobile phones. Both my mobile phones are connected to the office network. I have an iPad that is connected to the office network. All these instruments don't belong to the office. Office has given me a laptop. That laptop is also connected. I connect it to the network from wherever I am. Yes, technology has enabled me to do work from wherever I am, 24/7, but it has increased the risk for the organization. It has increased the risk for the organization from the point of view of data protection. Some of my personal devices have the confidential information of the organization. How does the organization deal with that? It's about individuals' integrity. Very, very important aspect. One could be dealing with very, very sensitive confidential information. Having these multiple touch points to the network create a larger issue in terms of network security. The risk of cybercrime increases significantly. That is for each business. Specifically, organizations in the financial services are at the highest risk. Deloitte, we conducted a global survey on this, on the cybercrime area. The financial services sector came out at top when it came to the kind of frauds which the sector has faced purely from cyber risk. You would have seen all these emails coming to you from various people, those, you have got a lottery, you've got a special gift, those kind of things. Plus you would have heard of all the skimming issues at the ATM centers, identity thefts. The more the technology is making life simpler, but it is also increasing the risk of fraud. As we were just talking before this session began, fraudsters are smarter than us. They are some of the smartest people. They always think 10 steps ahead. I always compare them, to criminals. Who could have thought of, let's say, the 26/11 attack which happened here in our 2 hotels, one in which we are sitting here? Did anybody think of that kind of a possibility before it actually happened? It increased our awareness that, this is a way in which it can happen. That's when we started creating our security walls around that when it happened. And that's how a fraudster also thinks. He will always try and figure out the loop and work on the loopholes. So when it comes to risk management is always a dynamic game. I've kind of tried to simplify it in terms of how one needs to look at strategic risk management. One needs to first know where we are, create a baseline for the organization, create milestones in terms of how the organization wants to move in the maturity curve when it comes to managing risk and managing the risk of fraud. And then having an action plan. The important aspect to keep in mind, which makes it extremely complicated, is that this baseline is always a moving item. The mistake which most of the organizations end up doing is once they've drawn a baseline, they think that baseline continues for 10 years. Important thing is to keep on relooking at that baseline periodically. Because there are no new regulations coming in, new acts which keep on coming in, new technologies which keep on coming in, new businesses which keep on evolving. So this baseline itself needs to be revisited every now and then. So all said and done, managing risk is not an easy job. I envy each one of you who may be sitting in that position where you need to look at managing the risk from an enterprise perspective. It is definitely it has become one of the most complicated jobs today. And hence it requires use of experts, use of technology, and use of whatever resources which may be available to you, along with the change in mindset of having compliance at the center of any business vision, that it has to be centered around compliance. Look at it as an investment and not as a cost. Thank you.